Javari, which means you won't hear the grazing sound or that buzz. Tanpura, the buzz comes from this thread. It lifts up the string a little bit. And when you pluck, it grazes the bridge surface. And that grazing, and at different points, it grazes at different points. And that grazing is what gives it that Javari, and it also what gives it those harmonics. This looks very simple, believe me. It's the most complex piece of work that can ever be done on any instrument. You can make an instrument, but there is no guarantee that you can get the Javari right. And I can talk from my personal experience how many bridges I have spoiled trying to get the Javari right for my instruments. It's such a fine piece of art. And people like Majid Bhai are the masters of these things. There's a lot that I've learned from him and from other makers that I have worked with on how Javari works. So the interesting thing is, you can say, oh, what? Oh, okay, it's just a curved surface. We can do it. And people have done it, and you get nothing out of it. You won't even get a sound out of that instrument. It's dead. There's nothing. You'll get nothing out of it. You get that Javari wrong, there'll be nothing in that instrument. But at the same time, you get the Javari right, even a bad instrument can sound really great. That's how much of a difference this makes to an instrument. So this is really Javari. It's life. It's really the life of an instrument. If you get the bridge right and the shape right, it's 70% of the job done for that instrument. And that's where the whole sound lies. So what kind of harmonics do you want? How do you want it? Whether do you want an open Javari, whether you want a closed Javari, what kind of, even in Tanpura, I prefer slightly less grazing sounds, less open Javari. So he does it accordingly for me so it doesn't, buzz a whole lot. So it depends on individual preferences, because what also happens is, if you have, in simple physics, if you have the first fundamental really loud, then everything else goes down, because there's fixed amount of energy. And if it's all eaten up by this one, then there's nothing after that left. However, if you keep that amplitude low, then you can hear a whole lot coming after that along with it, because that energy needs to sustain. So there is X amount of energy. That energy can be used for either volume or can be used for sustain. What happens and what is a fine Javari, and again this is an artistic preference. Different artists have different kinds of preferences. What is the art of Javari is to get the fine balance between sustain and amplitude. You want to have enough volume so that people can hear. Also, you want to have enough sustain so that you can, play long phrases and so on. So it's a fine balance between the two, which is why this is usually not, the Javari part is usually not attempted by musicians or artists and so on and so forth, unless they've really trained themselves to do that. So even great artists, they would call Majid Bhai or others to their house every once a year to redo Javari of all their Tanpuras or instruments and so on and so forth. So it's a very fine thing. Only these people over the years have mastered, and they come from that family who have trained in doing this, and they know exactly, if you tell them this is what I want, they know what they need to do that to get you the kind of sound that you are looking for. And that's something which is very unique to our instruments. And this is one of the reasons I firmly believe, this is one of the reasons that electronic instruments are very, very difficult to replace acoustic instruments. You don't have this functionality. These are parameters of a function that's available to you if you look at it mathematically, and you don't have these available. You have one singular function, that's it. And therefore, the complexity of that instrument cannot be so easily represented by electronic instruments. Why have keyboards been able to fairly closely replicate piano, but they have not been able to come even anywhere close to even sitar? Forget veena. Veena is very far for them. not even a sitar. That's because of the complexity of the sound that's involved. And we are nowhere near that kind of understanding of how this works. So this was where I started. This is my question, right? Because we are talking about the science now, and we still haven't understood the science of this. And as I said, the last person to have done any kind of study on our instruments was C.V. Raman, 100 years back. We've done nothing after that. But when people designed these instruments, Veena has been around for centuries. Tanpura has been around for centuries. We didn't have Fourier at that time. Fourier wasn't even alive. There was no Helmholtz, there was no Fourier, there was none of these guys existed. Veena, I will show you in the section on the Veena. Veena's tumba is like a Helmholtz resonator, and it's tuned to a frequency. There was no Helmholtz. Helmholtz wasn't even born at that time. We already figured out all this. How did all this come around? So what came from what? In this sense is very clear. I mean, we are still studying the science of how this works. And the science of this hasn't yet been able to give me a solution on what is the best way to do a Javari. I still need to call Majid if I need to do Javari. That's art. You understand? So as much as I would like to talk about the science of these instruments, it's also very important that everybody here understands the art behind that. And that's what makes that instrument. The science has very little role. Science is an after effect. It's for the understanding of what happens there. But they've already done it. They didn't know science. He's not a physicist. He's not a doctorate, PhD, nothing. But he does a Javari which, none of us can figure. Even if we understand the science, we can't do it. So these are two different aspects of this, and it's something worth appreciating, the art that goes behind these instruments. So there's often this debate over natural scale and tempered scale, and I will tell you what is a natural and tempered scale for those who are not aware of it. Natural scale are the frequencies that come as harmonics and overtones and partials that come from a open string, a vibrating string. And so for example, so I've just taken this is you can multiply this with any frequency. So if it's 1 as fundamental, then 2 will be the octave. So between 1 and 2, you have the notes in between. And here I have given you the frequencies as well. I've taken 440. A440 is the worldwide standard today for tuning of Western instruments. We've also taken that to a large extent. So when we say Kali Char or Safed Che or Kali Ek or whatever it is, it means with relative to this. A440 is the base frequency, and then everything else is calibrated according to that. So Kali Ek or a Safed Ek on a piano would be 261 hertz, and so on and so forth. Natural scale is natural harmonics and frequencies. Tempered scale is what is in Western music called equal tempered or equally distributed. Why they did this was when you need to play 25, 30, 100 instruments in an orchestra, you want to make sure that everybody is playing the same note. You can't have different violins playing different notes. So they standardized the whole octave. So there are 12 notes to an octave, 7 white notes and 5 black notes for those who have seen a harmonium or any keyboard for that matter. And those 12 notes have been equal tempered in the sense that each note division is the 12th root of 2. Why? 12th root of 2 is basically fundamental, octave is the double, and 12 in between. So each one is a 12th root of 2. So it's equally distributed. And in natural, it's as per the vibration that comes through. Now you can see the differences here. right? Why does this bother us? Now, I'll play you a small clipping. इसका on है ना headphone? थोड़ा और कम कर देना. Hear carefully. There are notes where you will start hearing beats, you'll start hearing differences. This is the stuff that bothers us, because when you are working with, I mean, this is in its simplistic form, where you have a fundamental and you have just straightforward harmonics and overtones. We are not even talking of Tanpura. But even with reference to that, when you played, and our music is based on natural notes, not equal tempered notes. And that's because that's nature, that's in nature, natural frequencies that's available in nature. This is artificially put in. It's a forced thing because the needs of the symphony in the orchestra for all the instruments to sound the same. So a piano is tuned to A440, and then all the other instruments in that orchestra and symphony are tuned with respect to that piano, so that every note that is played in that whole orchestra and symphony sounds the same. And that's the reason why this whole equal tempered scale came in the Western music. One of the reasons there is a long-standing debate in Indian music about harmonium or no harmonium is because of this, because harmonium is equal tempered scale. And your Tanpura is far, even if you remove the complexity of the Javari, even a simple Tanpura vibrating string is a complex, natural set of harmonics which clashes with the way the harmonium has been tuned. And so Tanpura is playing one set of frequencies, harmonium is playing another set of frequencies, you're singing another set of frequencies. So which one are you hearing? And this has been a debate for a while. That's a musical debate which we'll do just now. But the reason for this strong feeling in some circles that harmonium is not suitable is not because of any other reason except because of the musical reason that it dissonates with the way that our music has been progressing. So just one more time, you can hear carefully now. These are the differences that you start hearing. And even you don't have to be a great musician to hear this. You can feel the beats, you can feel the differences. And if you're at a layman level, if you can hear those differences as a musician, you can understand how disturbing that can be when you are singing or performing. And that's why there are strong feelings that, our music needs to be done with only Tanpura, and harmonium is not suitable. Not because it's a bad instrument, it's just not suitable to the way our music has been designed. So digital versus analog, this is the whole thing. There are electronic Tanpuras, electronic keyboards. I've seen even electronic sitars and so on and so forth. So it's basically based on sampling sound. So you sample sound, and the more samples you can get, the more accurate you can be to the sound. Of course, there is a limit between the cost and making it feasible. So they do a sampling based on Fourier series for those who understand how that works. So synthesizer is basically an electronic system synthesizing sound. So you can synthesize a piano sound, you can synthesize a guitar sound, you can synthesize a sitar sound. People have tried. I've heard sitar. I won't say much about the sound of it. And the limitations of digital sampling is basically in acoustic instruments, you have these partials, the way I showed you of the bridges, you have the partials and the upper harmonics, which are damn tough to get it. Besides, if I have a digital Tanpura, I cannot call Majid and say, do Javari. There is nothing to do there. He can't do a thing about it, right? If it's not sounding right, you can't do a thing. So there are issues with it, and therefore, specific to acoustic instruments is the shape, the Javari, and Um, we also have sympathetic strings which are tuned to different rags in some instruments. So those kinds of limitations exist in digital technology. It's convenient in some ways, but musically it's not the best. Chikari is a drone on some instruments that we have. In sitar, sarod, veena, etc. We have a drone. It's like a tanpura on the instrument itself. So it's usually tuned to sasa or pa sasa and stuff like that. So it's tuned to fundamental and the fifth, or the fundamental and the fourth, or only fundamentals. So veena has only fundamentals. Sitar has fifth and the fundamental, or fourth and the fundamental based on the rag. So it's like a built-in drone to that instrument. It's like its own tanpura. And I'll show it on the veena what the chikari is. So I'm not sure how we are running on time, but any questions on, before I go to the next session on the veena, any questions on tanpura, then we can. Okay, so let's finish then. Sorry. Oh, so tanpura is not a performing instrument by itself. It's like an accompanying instrument for you to know what is your sa, what is your fundamental. It's not a performing instrument by itself. So, for example, tanpura will be an accompanying instrument for me because I need to know what's my. Sitar is more used for playing the whole rag itself, not just for, it's limited in that sense, right? I mean, because you are limiting the instrument to just playing the chikari. The sitar can do a lot more, so why should it do? So tanpura does that job much better than sitar because tanpura has been designed to do only that. No, I didn't understand that. Okay, say that again. Oh, no. Unless the Javari is made properly, it won't give me the kind of notes and sounds that I'm looking for. It is for me, I understand that part, but for my own reference, it needs to sing or speak the way I want it to. That's why you need the Javari. That's. Hanji.
I request audience to use the cordless microphone for asking questions because we are recording everything. And right now we will not have much. We'll quickly move to next section. Yeah, we can please note down your questions and we'll subsequently have, because we are running out of time quickly. So there are Chandra Vinna session as well as Majid Bhai also will have to share his experiences briefly. So please. Okay. And I request audience to use the cordless microphone invariably, please.
Okay, so I'll quickly go through the Veena session. I was also asked to speak briefly on Chandra Veena, an instrument that I designed and got made. So before I do that, I want to give a brief prelude to Chandra Veena. This is Saraswati Veena. This is a very popular and a common instrument in the South used to play Carnatic music. Typically made of jackwood. And there are 7 strings. There are 4 main strings that run over here. And then there are 3 side strings which are called the chikari or the drone strings. There are 24 frets. There is a brass bridge on top. To give you a sense of what it sounds like, नहीं आ रहा है? नहीं आ रहा